Welcome to the CISSP Cyber Training Podcast, where we provide you the training and tools you need to pass the CISSP exam the first time. Hi, my name is Shon Gerber, and I'm your host for this action-packed, informative podcast. Join me each week as I provide the information you need to pass the CISSP exam and grow your cybersecurity knowledge. All right, let's get started. Hey, y'all, Shon Gerber with CISSP Cyber Training, and hope you all are having a beautifully blessed day today. Today is CISSP Question Thursday, and we are going to be going over CISSP questions related to Domain 1. Now, in the past, we have gone over around 15 different questions associated with each of the various domains, and some feedback I've gotten from folks is that the questions are great. They like to have all those things, but one of the points is like, how do I actually study for this test, and how do I understand the question? So we're going to make just a little bit different tact on this and see if you could give me some feedback from the listening audience around what your thoughts are around this topic. But the goal is that we're going to go through each question. There's about 5 total questions, and we're going to walk through each of them, and then why is one more better than another one, and some of the things that you may consider and some of the things you may actually maybe discard. So the goal of this is just to kind of be a little bit more slower pace to understand each question step by step, and then that way when you go to actually take the exam, using the knowledge that you've gotten from CISSP Cyber Training, from various places you found on the web, you now feel much more comfortable actually sitting and looking at a question and going, okay, now this is what they're trying to get at. So that's the goal of this podcast, and we're going to see if this works. If you like this, please respond to me at contact@CISSPcybertraining.com and give me some feedback and let me know if this is something that resonates or if it doesn't. And if you like the 15 questions, that's fine too. Just trying to figure out what works best for you and your study needs. But before we do, I wanted to actually jump into something that I think is pretty important for most all of us that we've dealt with here. I've had a very interesting conversation with some friends of mine here this week, and it's been very eye-opening and enlightening. And I'll just kind of go into that here in just a second. So this article comes out of ZDNet, and it's basically saying how AI agents can generate $450 billion by 2028, and what potentially stands in the way of doing that. Now, the reason I bring this up is, as you know, with my company that I deal with CISSP Cyber Training, and also as a partner with NextPeak, we are focused a lot on AI, and we're focused on AI risk assessments as one of the big factors as well. Now, one thing that I say that is because there's a lot of nuances when it comes to AI and how it's going to basically upend a lot of things that we know of today, and yet we still haven't really truly grasped all of that just yet. And the reason I bring all of that up is because I was talking to a friend of mine who has a development team in New York City, and he works here in the United States, and he also has business in India. And one of the pieces that he was bringing up was the fact that these young people in today's market that are coming out of college are struggling to get some levels of, especially in development space, jobs for them, because the AI is, at least from a code development standpoint, is taking over a lot of the things that they were doing coming right out of college. And so it's an interesting part. I knew it was going to happen, but it's happened much faster than I anticipated. And obviously I can't anticipate much of anything. That's why my stock portfolio is not very good. So the point of it is that you have to be able to pivot yourself and to understand AI, but also, if you're listening to this podcast, how do you pivot yourself in the future and move on in different careers? Now, I have one of the listeners and one of my students made a comment to me when we were chatting in our mentorship program. He said that he was actually getting into cybersecurity because of the fact that he wanted to make himself much more marketable. He's actually a developer, and he's got a great job, great gig, but he knows that if he doesn't, at some point in time, they're going to outsource some of his work. So he's taking the proactive step of becoming a cybersecurity professional, or at least having some of that stink on him, so that way if something does happen to his role, he's in a much better position to take care of him and his family. So I highly recommend that if you are in any space, because AI, as I walk through some of these numbers, are going to really kind of stand out of going, yeah, this is really going to be a market changer. So again, back to the article. This is how they're going to generate $450 billion by 2028. So that's only 3 years away, 2.5 years away. So what they're saying is is that they're combining revenue growth and cost savings because of those situations where you're not hiring a bunch of interns, you're saving money, but also the revenue growth of the more efficient use of these people's time because now AI can do this in a much faster way. Scaled adopters are basically saying in their full deployment can expect to earn around $382 million over 3 years, and then in the people in the pilot stage, just getting started, around $76 million or billion or million, I should say. So the point of it comes into is just that the growth is there. Now, this stat I think is really important, and it's going to kind of be very telling on where it's going to potentially go, and this is why they get so excited about all this, is they're saying that only 2% globally have full AI agent deployment. So only 2%. 12% have partial deployment, and 23 to 24% are piloting it. So roughly around 60% are exploring AI. So that leaves 49%, or not actually 39%. See, I can't do math in public. 39% aren't even in the game yet. And that's if you're really looking at that, they're just piloting it. That doesn't mean much of anything at this point, right? Pilot can be in very different levels of what they're trying to accomplish. But AI is going to be a big market disruptor in a lot of different ways. Now, the barriers that people are running into is one, lack of infrastructure of AI. And that I can see because we're still dealing from a security standpoint, you're dealing with folks that have infrastructure that's really old. It's been around for a long time and they haven't spent the money to update it. AI is going to require that they have a much higher level of infrastructure in place than they currently do. Also, 20% have high data readiness, which basically means they are ready to ingest high volumes of data and they're ready to go. So that means 80% are not. So that you can see there's it's just going to be a monumental change that people are going to have to go through. Now, this point is very true, is low AI literacy and strategy. Most folks don't even know how to deal with AI, let alone have a strategy around it. I've seen that as a consultant. They may just kind of go, well, yeah, we need AI, and they don't really understand how they should handle it. So it's an important part. So literacy for teaching your people is extremely imperative that you have a good plan around that. So one thing it's going to come down to is they talk about strategic transformation will be required to have this happen. And that's moving beyond the pilots, redesigning your processes to be AI minded. And then I think this is really, truly important. And if you are a cybersecurity professional, even though you may think you have a good, secure job, I would actually say you probably don't. It's just going to catch up. It's just a matter of time. But you need to get AI literacy and understand the culture. You really need to get understanding the AI aspects and what you can do with your business to help you with that. So, and this is when I mentioned that if you think that as cybersecurity you're good for a while. The only difference between a cybersecurity professional right now and some of these developers that are struggling, right, to find jobs and roles, the biggest difference you're going to run into is the fact that most companies are not yet willing, I say not yet willing, to offset that risk, of having AI work through some of these risky situations and provide recommendations and then potentially provide controls to help mitigate some of this risk. They're not yet ready to do that because the risk is too high. And what I mean by that is that the risk of, if something goes wrong, am I going to get sued? Their monetary financial risk that they are more concerned about will not allow the AI adoption completely of cybersecurity in the short term. I would be willing to bet that in the next 5 years, you're going to start seeing a shift away from having cybersecurity professionals do a lot of the rudimentary tasks that are out there right now. And a lot of SOCs are going to have to start really kind of organizing your people to understand how to implement AI within your organization, and then cross-train your folks into understanding what can they do. So being AI literate is extremely valuable. You have time now. Take the next 5 years and start really getting into AI and understanding how it can help you, and then also how it can help an organization. So again, the money is there. People are going to invest money in it. You're already seeing job cuts because of it. You better jump on the bandwagon and try to get as smart as you possibly can around AI because of that specific reasons. So again, something to consider. Again, I don't want to say the sky is falling, but but the sky is kind of falling. But it's a great opportunity for you to pivot. And I think every time something like this happens, for those who are willing to take the move, those who are willing to pivot and change their paradigm, it will be an extremely successful decision. Those that are not willing to change and not willing to change their paradigm, this will be a very painful thing that's going to occur. So I highly recommend you get your bottom down going and start understanding AI, understand security, how they interact together, what is the nexus between the two, and then you'll be in a much better position for you and your family in the next 5 years. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, this is going to be the CISSP Questions Deep Review, and I'm trying to come up with a great name, right? Some catchy title, but the point of it is I'm trying to walk through question by question, what are they trying to get at? Why is this important? Why do you need to know it? So we break this down, right? So domain 1, 2, and so forth. So we're going to be dealing with domain 1. Domain 1's about 15% of the questions that you're going to see on the CISSP exam are there. And that's an important part for you to kind of keep in mind. So as you're studying for the various pieces of domain 1, if you are weak in domain 1, you definitely want to spend more time in it. But domain 1 has about 15% of the questions based on the 2024 CISSP ISC squared program. Now, I want a quick shout out for CISSP Cyber Training. If you want any sort of free resources, there's tons of stuff out there. A lot of the content I have is free. I'm giving more and more away all the time. If you want to have more of a concierge type of approach and more of a hand-holding, or not a hand-holding, right, a partnership as we walk through your CISSP, you can look at my paid resources. I have mentorship, and I also have a plan to help you get your CISSP, but I'm more of a one-on-one approach. More concierge, more white glove. I'm here for you. And that's the overall purpose, because I know you can get a lot of your content for free online, which is fine. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff out there online that's free. The one thing I know is that if you want something to help you step by step to walk through it, the more paid version will help you with that. If you want access to me, the paid version will help you get that. But again, if you want the free stuff, I have tons of that, and more of it's coming all the time. So again, go to check it out at CISSP Cyber Training. Okay, so question 1, we're going to get into this. This is risk treatment and strategy pitfalls that you may come into as you're walking through this. Okay, so question 1, a cybersecurity team discovers a vulnerability in a legacy system. The fix would cost approximately $250,000, while the projected loss from the exploit is estimated at $50,000 annually over the next 3 years. So again, the fix costs you $250,000, while the projected loss, if you just leave it as it is, from this exploit is estimated at about $50,000 annually over the next 3 years. So it's roughly $150,000 annual loss, or not annual loss, over the next 3 years you'll lose $150,000 versus $250,000 you're going to spend to fix it. The CISO recommends no immediate action. Which risk treatment strategy is being applied? So again, he's basically accepting the risk, and he's saying, you know what, we're not going to do it because the cost is too high. So what risk strategy is being applied? A, risk avoidance. B, risk mitigation. C, risk acceptance. Or D, risk transfer. Again, A, risk avoidance. B, risk mitigation. C, risk acceptance. Or D, risk transfer. Okay, and the answer is C, risk acceptance. I kind of alluded to that a little bit, if he's accepting the risk. But again, the fix is about $250,000, which exceeds the expected loss over those 3-year period. Now, if that expected loss was to exceed $250,000, then you may or may not decide to implement the fix. And why? Why would you not want to implement it? Well, maybe the fact is that in the next 2 years, you're going to be implementing something else that's going to totally offset that, and it's just worth accepting the risk. Now, if the fix was, let's say, less, $50,000, and you're lose $50,000 a year if you were to get hit, yeah, then it would be a no-brainer. You'd move on. But by choosing to take no action, the organization is knowingly accepting the risk, and the financial decision is justified based on the risk assessment. Now, the thing you're going to have to also think about as a security professional is once you accept the risk as a CISO, you go and you accept it. Now you're going to go, you have to document all of that. And I've run into this in a couple consulting gigs that I've had, is that when the CISO or the senior leader goes, yep, I'm accepting that risk, which is great. then formal documentation needs to follow that. Why? Well, because guess what? When I was a CISO, I ran into the same exact problem. I didn't document it like I should have. And what ended up happening is when something were to occur, if I'm out of town, there was no documentation on why I made those decisions that I made. So you need to have some level of documentation knowing that why you've accepted the risk. That needs to be communicated up to your leadership, up to the board, or up to your CIO. Again, all of those are financial decisions, but depending upon the decision rights you have as an organization, within that organization, you will need to actually go forward and justify what you're doing. So why the other ones are wrong? Okay, A, risk avoidance would involve discontinuing the use of the system, and that's not what's going to actually happen at all. Mitigation would involve applying controls to reduce the risk, which was also rejected. Why? Because the risk mitigation piece of this, the cost, was they didn't want to spend the money. Risk transfer would be likely buying insurance or outsourcing the liability, which isn't mentioned at all in the question. So you may decide to do that. You may want to get some additional insurance, but it wasn't called out in the question specifically. Now, one common confusion you may run into, especially when you're dealing with this, is that you may mislabel the inaction as negligence. And that's one thing to consider, is that people will go, well, if I don't do anything, now I could be considered negligent related to some sort of regulatory body. And that is a possibility, right? But if you document your thought process and your reasoning behind it and why you did it, odds are high that that will not go anywhere. Because what these guys are wanting is, they know you're trying to make decisions based on what's best for the company, but you have to be able to document why you made those decisions and your thought process behind it. Now, if you made the decision that, I'm documenting it saying, I just didn't want to because I didn't think there was a risk, no big deal. If it was that flippant, then you'd be in trouble. But if you've documented why you thought the process and why you came to the conclusion, odds are high you're going to be in a much better position than if you don't do anything at all. So again, you need to watch for economic justification, and you really need to understand that is the hallmark of risk acceptance when you're dealing with economic justification. Question 2, due diligence versus due care. Okay, which of the following best describes or demonstrates the principle of due diligence in an organization's security program? So which of the following best demonstrates the principle of due diligence in an organization's security program? A, performing quarterly audits to ensure controls are functioning as expected. B, updating incident response procedures after a breach occurred. C, establishing a security policy approved by executive leadership. Or D, ensuring employees sign acceptable use policies during the onboarding process. Again, which of the following demonstrates the principle of due diligence in an organization's security program? A, performing quarterly audits. B, updating incident response procedures after the breach occurs. C, establishing security policy approved by executive leadership. Or D, ensuring employees sign the acceptable use policies during the onboarding process. Again, due diligence. And the answer is A, performing quarterly audits to ensure that controls are functioning as expected. Okay, so that's the due diligence piece. This is about ongoing monitoring and evaluation and improvement. That's what due diligence is. You're being diligent about what's there. You want to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. The security controls are actually working as intended. These are like regular audits. These ensure oversight and accountability, which will align with the continuous due diligence aspects. You're going to depend upon what organization you're in. You may have regulatory requirements that force you to do this on an ongoing basis. But even if you don't have regulatory requirements forcing you to do this, it's something you should consider. Again, if you're a senior leader in security, it's your head on a platter, and they'll be coming for you. Knives will come out. The moment something bad happens, knives will come out, and they will be after you. So I recommend that you don't go over and above and just go crazy with this stuff. But at the same time, everything that you do, every decision you make should be documented and why it was made. It could be as simple as an email, but it needs to be documented and stored in a location that's easy to be accessed by people. So why the other ones are wrong? B is reactive. Due care may apply, but it's not proactive diligence, okay? C, it reflects the initial governance setup. Again, that's what you're setting it up going, but it's not ongoing oversight, which is what due diligence will cover. And then D is obviously enforcing your acceptable use policy. Again, that's due care, making sure you're taking responsible steps to protect your assets. So again, a lot of times that happens, due care and due diligence get confused. So due care is action taken. With due diligence is ongoing governance or oversight. Diligence means you're paying attention to it. Due care means you are actually doing something to help reduce the risk of it. Remember, again, due diligence equals doing your homework. Due care equals doing the right thing. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. That's question number 2. Question 3, ethics and professional judgment. Okay, you're a security consultant hired by a client who unknowingly stores regulated data in an encrypted format. Okay, so unknowingly. Fixing the issue would exceed the client's current budget. What is the most ethical course of action according to ISC Squared's Code of Ethics? Okay, and this comes back to what we talk about with ISC Squared, but it's really when it comes down to is what is your Code of Ethics? A, quietly document the finding and continue to work as agreed on the contract. B, inform the client of an issue and recommend they fix it when funds are available. C, immediately cease work and report the client to the regulator. Or D, inform the client of the regulatory violation, recommend immediate remediation, and document the conversation. Okay. Most ethical course of action. There's a couple in here that you could actually do, but when they're asking what is the most ethical piece of this, which one is it? And the answer is D. Obviously, this is the one that's going to cause some strife. I will tell you that. Inform the client of the regulatory violations because they didn't know, right? They weren't aware, so you told them, okay? Recommend immediate remediation and then document the conversation. Now, because they don't have this in budget, it's going to cause all kinds of drama, right? There's going to be all kinds of drama. And you're going to have to work through that. But let's just go down to what ISC Squares talks about. So it requires that you protect society and the common good and you act honorably, honestly, and lawfully, right? So notifying the client and documenting this will align with those and those duties and without overstepping any sort of legal boundary. So you've notified them. You're not actually doing it, but you're notifying them. You're not notifying regulators. You're notifying them. So now that you've notified them, it is on them to get this taken care of and addressed. Now, but it will cause drama. And here's one of the things that you're going to want to do as a security professional if this happens. Once you find out there's a problem, you will want to informally get on the phone and you will want to call them and let them know, hey, guys, gals, this is coming. I'm going to bring this up. You're going to see it in print. It's going to be in written format. And we need to come up with a plan on how we're going to address it. I would highly recommend you do that ahead of time. You talk to them ahead of time. Maybe come to them with some options on how to address the problem. Maybe some things you can do to help them in this case. But have that good plan before you send an email saying, this is a formal, I'm letting you know that you have been doing this wrong. But if you do, because the reason I say that, and I don't want to tell you that you go and you say, well, you just don't tell it. You don't tell people. No, you have to do that. That's the right thing to do. The part that makes you a good partner with these folks is the fact that you then give them a heads up that this is coming, because nobody wants to be blindsided by this. And if you all of a sudden send them an email saying, hey, by the way, you are in violation of this regulation, it now is something that's totally admissible. It's something they have to deal with, they have to address, which is what they should. But if they already been kind of warmed up to the idea of what's going on and they have some potential options, now when that email comes across their desk, they're going, oh, okay, yep, we can do it. We got it. We got a plan. We got a plan. You always want to allow people to save face. Do the right thing. Do what's right, but you want to allow people to save face. It's an important part. Okay, I can't stress that enough. Why are others wrong? Okay, one, ignores a violation. That's unethical. Don't want to do that potentially. B, it delays the mitigation without documentation or risk escalation. C, could be considered overreaction, right, and could violate the confidentiality clauses. And that is one of those where you go and tell the regulator, hey, these guys goofed up. You don't want to go do that just yet. You want to make sure, and if you do something like that, make sure you have legal counsel that has talked to you and they will recommend, yes, go and do that. Or they'll say, no, don't do that. Don't do any of these things without legal counsel. Now, some common confusion around this is that you will struggle with the balance between business constraints and legal and ethical responsibilities. It's that fine line. And the key here is to advocate for the security while documenting your decision. But also you want to work as a partner with these people. I can't stress that enough. Being a partner is a good thing. Question 4, policy versus procedure. A company enforces a strong password requirements. The user complains a system allowed them to set the password 123 or password 123. Despite the policy stating the password must contain dictionary words, what is the most likely issue? Okay, so basically what ends up happening is you have a strong password requirement. The user was allowed to put in some goofy password that wasn't good. Despite stating the passwords must not contain dictionary words such as password. What is the most likely issue? Okay, A, the standard is incorrectly defined. B, the procedure was not implemented correctly. C, the policy is too vague. Or D, the guideline is overriding the policy. Okay, we all know. So you got to understand what guideline is, you got to understand what a policy is, and we got to understand what a procedure is. And let's walk through the answer. The answer is B. The procedure was not implemented correctly. Yes, it would be that. Why? A procedure defines how a policy is enforced. So your acceptable use, your password policies, this is how they would be enforced. And a lot of it's the technical procedure that goes into actually clicking the links to make sure it all does what it's supposed to do. If the system is technically allows for weak passwords, the implementation, i.e. procedure, was flawed, which basically means they didn't click a button they should have probably clicked. So the procedure didn't follow through. The acceptable use or the password policy in this case here is perfectly fine according to what they said, but the controls, the configurations on the back end did not match up with what the policy stated. So again, A, we'll kind of go why the other ones were wrong. A, standards define rules like passwords must be 12 characters, not logical enforcement. So a standard will tell you what you should do, but it doesn't tell you how it should be done. The policy appears clear and passwords must avoid dictionary words, but it did allow a dictionary word in that password. And then guidelines, key thing, are non-mandatory, which basically means they're just guidance is all they are. They do not override policies by any stretch of the imagination. And we talk about this, it's standards, policies, procedures, guidelines, kind of in that format. So what's the confusion? Policy versus procedure can be very confusing, and I see this all the time. People struggle with what a policy is, and they also struggle with what a standard is. So the policy is what must happen. So that's what must happen. Your policies must be, you cannot have dictionary words, you have to have complex words, blah, blah, blah. The procedure is how it would happen. That's the buttons that you are clicked to allow it to actually occur. So it's a pretty straightforward question, but you have to know various details around policies, procedures, and guidelines to be able to really, truly feel confident in answering the question. Question 5, the last melon. Security governance structures. We're getting into governance. Which of the following best illustrates a failure in security governance at the executive level? Okay, which of the following best illustrates a failure in security governance at the executive level? A, an organization lacks documented procedures for account revocation. B, the vulnerability remains unpatched for 6 months due to oversight. C, the security team reports to the IT director who deprioritizes risk-based decisions. Or D, a third-party vendor failed to follow the data handling procedures leading to a breach. Okay, so which of these best illustrates security governance at the executive level? Okay, so if you kind of go through here in these questions, you're going, well, okay, which ones are this? Does this one deal with technical? Does this one deal with executives? What is it? And let's walk into what the answer is. And the answer is C, right? The security team reports to the IT director. So we're talking executives. This is the one who deprioritize the risk-based decisions, and so that was an executive level challenge there. Security governance is about organizational alignment, especially at the executive level, and that's the governance. I mean, let's be realistic. Governance helps the executives stay out of jail, and if you have good governance and you follow governance, it can help that. That won't mean it will totally protect you, but it will help you in your overall program. If security is subordinated to IT operations, because cost, convenience, you're basically saying, I don't want to deal with it, I'm going to push it down to ops. This is where governance potentially has failed, and it does cause problems, because I've seen it happen where ops will go, they have a different priority in how they deal with things. They also understand risk differently than the senior leadership will, and they will make decisions based on what they know. And if you're the CISO of a organization and you understand risk based on the organizational standpoint, but your IT operations folks do not, and they make decisions based on IT ops, that can cause you all kinds of drama, and it can actually lead you to a lot of sort of technical aspects and legal issues that you may have to work through. So again, it's an important part. If you deal with this, you don't want to let that go down to the IT ops area if you're the CISO for your organization. Okay, A is a procedural flaw, operational, not governance level. B is a control oversight. It can stem from policy failure, not executive level failure. And then D relates to third-party risk, right? So TPRM, this is not something that the executive level they would deal with it, but that was not really tied toward the IT director. It was tied towards the third-party risk. So what are some confusion, right? people confuse governance with any other security control failure. If it failed, it's a governance issue, and that's not necessarily the truth. True governance involves a strategic alignment, authority, structures, and accountability at the top of the organization. And the organization, that's an important part that they have to deal with, is the overall governance. If you have an organization that doesn't have real good governance, I'm sorry, but you're setting yourself up for disaster. You need to have a governance structure in place. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be just basics, but at a minimum, you have something that defines everybody's roles, what are their responsibilities, also who has the decision rights. All of that is a governance type of piece, and it's an important part of all security within any organization. Okay, that is all I have for you today. I hope you got a lot out of this. Let me know. Just email me. Let me know what you think about it. The ultimate point is that I'm trying to create questions and answers for you guys that when you go sit for the test, you go, that's why. The point is not to regurgitate these questions. And to be very transparent, if you're trying to get the test done as fast as you possibly can, CISSP cyber training it will help you a little bit, but it's definitely not going to help you in the levels that you need. The goal of this program and the goal of the podcast and of the content that I have at CISSP Cyber Training is to, one, help you pass the CISSP, but it's also to set you up for future success as a cybersecurity professional. I'm sorry, anybody can take a test, anybody can pass a test, but it's the expertise that you gain in this profession that is what's going to help you accelerate you in your career. And if the more knowledge you can gain through the different cybersecurity pieces and the way that you can then help impart and reduce people's risk, the better off the entire community is going to be. So again, check it out, CISSP Cyber Training. Lots of free stuff. There's some paid stuff, but I guarantee you'll be happy with anything that you go with. I wish you the best and have a great day, and we'll catch you on the flip side. See ya. Thanks so much for joining me today on my podcast. If you like what you heard, please leave a review on iTunes, as I would greatly appreciate your feedback. Also, check out my videos that are on YouTube, and just head to my channel at CISSP Cyber Training, and you will find a plethora or a cornucopia of content to help you pass the CISSP exam the first time. Lastly, head to CISSP Cyber Training and sign up for 360 free CISSP questions to help you in your CISSP journey. Thanks again for listening.